Good afternoon, everyone. It really is a pleasure to see each and every one of you this evening, and an honor to welcome the Democratic leader of the Senate, Senator Harry Reid, back to the House side. He began his service in Congress here. We take great pride in that. Today we had a major victory on the floor of the House. It was a victory for bipartisanship. It was a victory for working families in our country. It was a victory that enables us to go forward to do our job for the American people. I'm very pleased that as one part of what happened today, we honored the full faith and credit of the United States of America, and in a very strong number. I'm very pleased that the agreement that came forth in the budget agreement honored the principle of 50-50 of going forward and support investments in our national security, which we need, and investments in our domestic security that we need. We have removed the stranglehold of sequestration from our national security and from our economic growth. I'm very pleased also that the legislation included to stop a 20% cut in the disability benefits for people with disabilities in the Social Security program. We're very pleased to have worked with Senator Reid on these issues, as well as on stopping a sharp increase in Medicare Part B payments for our seniors. For the security of our country, the growth of our economy, the financial stability of our seniors and people with disabilities, for the full faith and credit of the United States of America, we're very proud. And I'm especially proud because we were able to work together, House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans. But the unity on the Democratic side in the House demonstrated by 100% of the Democrats voting for the agreement. Didn't mean that they approved of every single aspect of it. It is a compromise. But it did say that we had unity. We demonstrated that unity when bills came to the floor that we did not think were good for working families in our country, and that the president said he would veto. Again and again and again, House Democrats supported the president's veto. In the Senate, Senator Reid, using the rules of the Senate, was able to stop some of this destructive legislation as well. So it was really exhilarating to work with him. He's a master, he's a virtuoso legislator, and to follow his lead in these discussions and make known some of the concerns of our House members. So again, it was about working together, House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, for the good of the American people. And as always, it is my honor to work with the distinguished Democratic leader of the Senate, Harry Reid.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Nancy, thank you very much. She's a pleasure to work with, has been for all these many years. We set out with a number of goals. Number one, we wanted to make sure we got rid of sequestration. We didn't get rid of it permanently, but we did for a couple of years. That's wonderful for the American people. Number two, we wanted to make sure that the Pentagon, which needed their money, they got their money, but that the middle class also got their money. If we were going to have an increase for defense, we wanted to make sure that we had an increase for the middle class, and we did that. We are very happy with what the House did today. 100% of the Democrats in the House of Representatives voted for this deal. 100%. 32% of the Republicans voted for it. So you can do the math yourself. Vast majority of the Republicans serving in the House of Representatives wanted, obviously, to default on the debt of this country, which would be so catastrophic, not only to America, but the world. And obviously, they didn't mind the government shutting down. So we have a lot to do ahead of us. We want to make sure that we pass this in the Senate. We're going to do that tomorrow or the next day or the next day. And I think we'll get 100% of the Democrats in the Senate. I would hope that we would get a nice number from Republicans. The more bipartisan this is, the better off it is. As Leader Pelosi mentioned, this is wonderful that we have been able to work together, the Democratic and Republican leaders, with the President of the United States to come up with this program that is really good for the country. We met this morning with the some of the doctor scientists of the world, and I mean of the world, Dr. Collins, the man that runs the Johns Hopkins, and these great scientists. And they are elated that they think that we're going to be able to help fund the NIH at a reasonable number and give them a small increase. We believe we can do that. So I say to my Republican friends in the Senate, please vote for this. This is important. You've got all the Democrats, we need Republicans, and we need a nice number of Republicans. And I also say, we need to make sure this omnibus spending bill we do is a good one. We have the House Democrats, we're holding hands with the President, with the Senate Democrats. We're not going to take these vexatious, idealistic riders. We're not going to do that. We're not going to have the health of women depend on what these ideological people want to do. We have no concern about the debt ceiling of this country or whether or not we can fund the government. We don't want these riders. They talk about doing away with EPA, hurting the banking system, and all the other things that have nothing but ideological tendencies that are not good for the country. So we want to move forward, get this appropriation stuff done, clean up our work that we have so much more to do toward the end of the year.
I'd like to add to, I'd like to join actually Democratic leader Reid in commending the president. He was very much a part of the deliberations, and I want to salute Speaker Boehner as well. Again, this is a compromise, and it's something that we recognize as such and feel that the big vote that we got here today recognizes that this is a sustainable victory. Although sadly, you had 2/3 of the Republicans voting no. But who was voting yes were just pages and pages: AARP, Senator from Medicare Advocacy, Consortium of Citizens with Disabilities, Federation of American Hospitals, American College of Physicians. The list goes on and growing of support of organizations who support what happened here today. And not only do they support the specifics of the legislation, they support the bipartisanship, the reaching across the aisle that was done to achieve this. With that, does anyone have a question?
Leader Pelosi, Paul Ryan has told his conference that he's going to abide by the so-called Hastert Rule, ensuring that the majority of the majority supports any bill that he brings to the floor. What impact do you think this would have if he continues that route, if he continues to abide by the Hastert Rule?
Well, first of all, there never was a Hastert Rule. What is a rule? Is an approach that you take. The approach that they would take would never have allowed this important budget bill to come to the floor. If that were the rule, the full faith and credit of the United States would be dishonored. We would be in default. So I hope that this speaker will not be constrained by that so-called rule, which is, as I say, never a rule. We would never have been able to do many things that we have accomplished here. In fact, lifting full faith and credit, the last time 199 Republicans voted no, 28 voted yes. So the number of yeses is growing, but nonetheless, still not a majority of their caucus. So I would hope that his members will allow him to be speaker. And if the constraint that they place on him is that they want to vote for something that they support, let them do that. But also let the House work its will, and a majority of the House pass legislation to go on to the Senate, or if it's coming from the Senate, to go on to the White House. This constraint that you described is very damaging to America's working families, because it means the minority of the minority of the minority can rule the House. It'll only take half the majority, half the Republicans here, to say that something can't go forward. That's, a little more than 25% of the House. That shouldn't be what rules here.
Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I know my staff is quivering in their boots, but I think that they should come up with a new name. I'm not sure the Hastert Rule is good to have on anything.
Well,
Why is that?
okay. Anyway, any other questions?
Madam Leader, what is, I just have to get that down. What is your very fondest memory of John Boehner? You've worked with him for many, many years.
Well, yes, I have, and I have great admiration for John Boehner, and as I will say on the floor tomorrow as I hand the gavel to the next speaker, that he was always loyal to his caucus. I respected that loyalty. He always, isn't that right, Harry? He always spoke for them. So for them to exact this penalty on him that he has to give up the gavel if he doesn't want to shut down government seems very unfair. Many fond memories, the joy had, recent ones, the joy he had in the birth of Alistair, his grandson. But of course, everything is eclipsed by the visit of His Holiness Pope Francis. The speaker, this meant a lot to him. He made it a beautiful and meaningful visit. We all like to think we were part of that planning and that beauty and that meaning, but the fact is that John Boehner took special responsibility and deserves a great deal of credit for the success of the visit. So again, many interesting moments. We hardly ever agreed on many things, but we did know that we had to compromise. We did agree on our respect for the institution in which we serve, the House of Representatives. We both knew the power of the speakership, and we both love our country. So we had some fundamentals in common. The issues divided us, and as I say, he was always loyal to the priorities of his caucus, and it's sad to see that respect and loyalty was not reciprocated.
Did you ever commiserate with one another in private? And I know you won't talk about content, I wish you would, but did you ever commiserate about the trials of the speakership or leadership, or man, what a day, or man, these people, or did you guys ever connect on that stuff?
No. We didn't, because I don't have any complaints about anything that I'm doing around here. No. We did know that sometimes it's hard, passing a bill is a challenge, right? It's not automatic, and especially since what you want to do is build consensus in your caucus. But no, I think we all relished the opportunity that we had, took pleasure in the relationship we had with our members, and responsibility for the opportunities that were there for the American people. But no, that was not, and that's what I say, he never expressed any view except that he was proud to represent the caucus, and he represented their point of view. So a speaker cannot enable a few people to drive the engine of legislation in the caucus. So I would say to the Republican majority, let the speaker be speaker. Let Ryan be speaker, and let his role as Speaker of the House be how he is measured as a speaker, and not by the lowest common denominator in the Republican caucus. Mr. Leader?
I hope that John Boehner tells his children, his grandchildren, and that his legacy, as far as I'm concerned, is one of absolute honesty. He never, ever misled me. He always told me what he was going to do, most of which I didn't like, but he never, ever misled me. We had a wonderful relationship. We did a lot of things, person to person, and I repeat, his legacy, as far as I'm concerned, was total honesty.
Thank you all very much.
Yep.
Good evening.